covering this issue in more detail shortly. From an article in Scientific American, listen to why the theory or star formation is problematic. Quote, although astronomers' theory of star formation has advanced substantially in recent years, it still has serious holes. Stars form out of gaseous clouds that collapse. Yet where do these clouds come from, and what makes them collapse? If there is anything you think astronomers would have figured out by now, it is how stars form. It might seem that star formation is a problem that has been solved, but nothing could be further from the truth. The birth of stars remains one of the most vibrant topics in astrophysics today." Unquote. While there are plenty of excuses given, such as the process takes too long to observe in real time, or it is hidden behind clouds so we can't observe it, the bottom line is that the actual process of gases and dust forming stars has never been directly observed, nor are any of the theories based on naturally occurring phenomena. Note that even the recent claims that radio telescopes have detected signs of infalling gas, the detection of dust clumping together is always assumed, not actually recorded. And if star formation is indeed occurring now, unless it is explained in naturalistic terms, it is still a supernatural event that would be attributed to a power that seems to violate or go beyond natural forces. Naturalistic explanations for the origin of planets are equally flawed. It is hypothesized that planets are formed by dust grains from stars, and this quote from the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics explains it as follows. Quote, every planetary system forms in a thin disk of gas and dust orbiting a young star. Small dust grains, a micron or two in size, collide and merge into large aggregates that settle into the midplane of the disk. In the midplane, aggregates grow into planetesimals with diameters of roughly 1 kilometer. Collisions between planetesimals produce planets. SSP scientists use theoretical calculations to understand how dust grains evolve and how planetesimals become planets." Unquote. Recent research has discredited this hypothesis, but another even more creative model has already replaced it. As with everything else so far, the origin of planets is just another part of the something from nothing belief. And listen to these comments refuting any theory that might suggest otherwise. From the European Southern Observatory, quote, the new discoveries provide an unexpected and serious challenge to the current theories of planet formation. The new results really challenge the conventional wisdom that planets should always orbit in the same direction as their stars spin, says Andrew Cameron of the University of St. Andrews, who presented the new results at the RAS National Astronomy meeting in Glasgow this week. Unquote. From NASA, quote, the formation of planets is one of the major unsolved problems in modern astrophysics, unquote. But do you know what the ultimate punchline is to this? It is the fact that scientists can't figure out how any form of mass is created, whether now or in the past. This single issue is by far the biggest challenge to the Big Bang Theory, and listen to these indicting comments from experts in the field of particle physics. From Stanford's National Accelerator Laboratory, quote, we do not know what causes the fundamental particles to have masses, unquote. From the European Organization for Nuclear Research, quote, what is the origin of mass? Why do tiny particles weigh the amount they do? Why do some particles have no mass at all? At present, there is no established answers to these questions, unquote. The perplexing mystery of how and why some particles spontaneously form into mass and others don't has prompted many scientists around the world to keep their eyes on the Large Hadron Collider, LHC, the world's largest and highest energy particle accelerator. This multi-billion-dollar collider is attempting to simulate the supposed conditions during the Big Bang by smashing subatomic particles into each other at high speeds. Believing they can break down subatomic particles further into smaller fundamental particles, one of the things that physicists hope to discover is a particle that might help them figure out how structures of mass are formed. Confident that this hypothetical particle exists, it has been preliminarily named the Higgs boson particle, also referred to as the God particle, because without it, matter can't exist, or isn't supposed to. But what if nature is purposely disrupting the collider in order to keep its secrets from us? Sound far-fetched? The following idea came from a couple of well-known physicists. Quote, a pair of otherwise distinguished physicists have suggested that the hypothesized Higgs boson, which physicists hope to produce with the collider, might be so abhorrent to nature that its creation would ripple backward through time and stop the collider before it could make one, like a time traveler who goes back to kill his grandfather, unquote. Let's examine some of the problems with particles spontaneously clumping together to form mass. It is known that elementary particles have an intrinsic angular momentum called spin, and this spin is perpetual. So even if particles somehow began to attract to one another, the spin motion within each of them would cause them to separate from each other, versus clumping together and compressing into a structure of mass. Acknowledging that the spin problem is an obstacle that is difficult to overcome, a clever new model called the internal relativity model was devised to offset it. Without one bit of evidence supporting it, listen to this fanciful story. Quote, Dreyer's model imagines a system of spins existing independently of matter and arranged randomly. When the system reaches a critical temperature, the spins align, forming an ordered pattern, unquote. Then there's a problem with gravity. Simply put, there is no naturalistic explanation for its origin, and no one has been able to accurately define the driving force behind it, or why it works the way it does. New theories attempting to explain it are constantly being devised, but with no success. Listen to the problem when attempting to put gravity into an all-encompassing theory. From the Contemporary Physics Education Project, quote, Gravity is weird. It is clearly one of the fundamental interactions, but the standard model cannot satisfactorily explain it. This is one of those major unanswered problems in physics today, unquote. From Live Science, quote, Gravity is completely different from the other forces described by the standard model, said Mark Jackson, a theoretical physicist at Fermilab in Illinois. When you do some calculations about small gravitational interactions, you get stupid answers. The math simply doesn't work, unquote. From The New Scientist, part of the problem with unifying gravity and quantum mechanics is what happens to gravity at small scales. The closer two objects are to each other, the stronger the gravitational attraction between them. But gravity also acts on itself, and as a result, at very small distances, a feedback loop starts. According to conventional theories, the force should then become ridiculously strong, which means there's something wrong with the conventional theories, unquote. One explanation for the force of gravity is that mass emits tiny particles called gravitons that carry a force of attraction, but have no mass or charge. Just imagine, though, the delicate balance, or should we say control, that gravitons would have to have so that only some particles are attracted to each other, instead of an unlimited force of attraction that would continue to clump all particles in an exponential and uncontrolled process. This would make it fascinating to see how one might explain the graviton's origin, assuming, of course, they ever find it. Along with the Higgs particle, we'll mark the graviton down as also missing. Proposed by Einstein's theory of general relativity, it is also believed that gravity causes objects of large mass to distort space and time around them. These distortions or fluctuations in space and time are thought to be mediated by tiny vibrations of energy called gravitational waves. They fan out like ripples in water, further distorting space and time, the force getting weaker as the waves travel outwards from their source. But gravitational waves haven't been found yet either, so we'll put them on the missing list too. Contradicting Einstein's theory of general relativity, that theorizes that the expansion of the universe is slowing, now most Big Bang followers believe that the universe is expanding outwards at an accelerating rate. But if gravity causes mass to be attracted to other forms of mass, what would cause it to change directions and instead move outwards towards nothing? To address this dilemma, the Big Bang theory added another hypothetical component called dark energy, which is believed to be an opposing repulsive force that pushes forms of mass away from each other. But considering that approximately 70% of the universe is believed to be dark energy, isn't it interesting that it's waiting to be found? We'll add this to the missing list. Thinking that it would be nice to have something that emits dark energy, particles called chameleon particles have been proposed. These particles can supposedly, quote, change their mass depending upon the local environment, unquote. That would be a great trick, and very ingenious of the particles, don't you think? Yes, we'll mark them down as missing too. So if the universe really is expanding outward, what is it expanding into? We're told that it's nothing that we can see, and it's not a, quote, profitable thing to think about, unquote. But the very reason that all this nonsense is believed by many shows that we need more critical thinking, not less. To help you see what a mess this all is, let's take a trip into the universe and view it from a macro level. For the sake of time, this brief overview is obviously simplified and doesn't even begin to explore the complexities of the universe. Let's start with the Milky Way. There are an estimated 200 billion stars in our Milky Way galaxy, with over half of them orbiting each other in pairs, each pair orbiting around the Milky Way's galactic center. Other stars may be grouped together in open or globular clusters, each cluster orbiting around the galactic center. Contradicting predictions made by Big Bang theorists, galaxies are known to be unevenly distributed in space, and their rotational spin does not uphold commonly held physics principles. Galaxies come in all sizes. They exist alone, in pairs, or are grouped together in clusters that have dozens or thousands of other galaxies in them. Each galaxy cluster has its own center of gravity, which individual galaxies orbit around, and within each galaxy cluster is a strange plasma structure that connects all the galaxies to each other. Galaxy clusters also make up superclusters, with some superclusters having 100 galaxy clusters within them. So, how does the Big Bang Theory explain gravitational anomalies like these pockets of matter separated and yet contained within smaller pockets of matter? Enter dark matter. Even though it's invisible, and no one knows what it is, nor can it be directly detected, Big Bang followers believe that dark matter accounts for approximately 80% of all the matter in the universe and about 23% of the entire universe. How do they know this? They don't. The only thing Big Bang followers know is that something out there is needed to explain all these gravitational anomalies. So like their other missing components, they just gave it a name, declared it more than likely true, and now are spending billions of dollars trying to find it. Listen to what an absolute conundrum this presents to the Big Bang followers, and why dark matter is added to the missing list. First, from Columbia University, quote, "The findings show that dark matter, which is believed to make up 83% of the matter in the universe, is more elusive than many had hoped. Scientists first suggested the existence of dark matter in the 1930s to explain how galaxies keep from breaking apart as they spin. Like merry-go-rounds, galaxies generate centrifugal force as they rotate. Gravity is the glue that holds stars and galaxies together. That's why scientists believe there must be additional, unseen matter out there." Unquote. From NASA, quote, "Dark matter is invisible, and nobody even knows what it is, but it is evident by the fact that galaxies hold together at all. Some unseen substance lurks in space, concentrated in galaxies, and generated gravity in amounts well beyond the visible matter." Unquote. We could go on and on with more of the something from nothing premise and its missing components. But whether it is the Big Bang Theory or any other evolutionary-based theory, none of them can be reconciled with known physics principles and empirical evidence, let alone reason. And, by definition, each and every one of them is nothing but a supernatural explanation disguised as naturalistic. Sadly, it is the rebellious nature of many of us that will cause us to reject the truth of the Genesis account of creation and its supernatural beginnings and existence. God knew that this would happen and referred to it when he declared, "See to it that no one takes you captive through hollow and deceptive philosophy." Regardless of the lack of evidence, Big Bang followers continue to place their faith in the promise that they can someday prove nothing can actually create something. While we're all free to believe whatever we wish, we are not free to choose the consequences of that belief. The bottom line is this: if you reject God's word, you have rejected Jesus. This truth is not just in the first verse of the Bible, nor does it end with the Old Testament. Jesus, as the Creator and your Creator, is proclaimed throughout the Bible. Yes, this is about faith and salvation, heaven or hell, God's grace or man's delusion that he can save himself from his Creator's judgment. Please consider your soul today.